this room, you can close your eyes or not, but to begin with a short visualization, and I want everyone to picture an image in their mind that makes them feel very peaceful and tranquil and calm. That place they go to in their mind, or that they envision when you feel angry or upset or nervous, what really gives you peace? Now you don't have to raise your hand, but for how many of you is someplace out in nature, in the environment, next to a plant or an animal, or breathing in the fresh air? Thinking about this helps us understand the tremendous benefits we gain from nature and the environment on a regular basis. We are a continual interaction, whether it is laying out on the beach or hanging out in the lawn or going to a forest preserve or camping out in the wilderness. We are continuously interacting and benefiting from this on a regular basis. Every single breath that we take and the water we drink and the food we consume and the sun upon our skin for energy is a relationship that we cannot live and thrive without. So what happens when all those need healing and are not doing well? So I decided to go on a journey that has to do with food, because I believe we have forgotten our roots. We are nature, we live in nature, we are part of a vast wilderness, even out in Chicago, if you really open your eyes and see. We are comprised of many of the same elements found in Earth, and we have many of the same biological processes that occur in that plant you saw today or that animal you saw yesterday. We have forgotten these truths because we have forgotten our roots. And when I went on a journey to remember my roots and reconnect with the land and started growing my own food, transformation occurred that I never thought would. And another part of the reason what motivated me was these maps. And these are maps of food deserts, one older and on the right is a newer map system. In red are areas where people don't have the access to real food. And what I mean by real food is real produce, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, things that we are biologically adapted to consume to thrive and be healthy. And that got me thinking, why in this city and in many other cities all around the world do we have this problem? Because when I started looking around and really observed and opened my eyes, I noticed the vast amount of able space there's available to reconstruct and to redevelop into green space and gardens. As I started looking around in alleyways and sidewalks, I noticed that we do have space in a city. As cluttered and chaotic as it may be, we must bring it more local so we can really heal those three things. Look around and see that I saw so many empty backyards, front yards, side yards, rooftops, patios, balconies, next to schools, next to hospitals, next to businesses, on giant lawns that are so water intensive. These can be very transformative. So what did I do? I started growing food, and I started as a complete unprofessional. I am by no means an expert. I did not study agriculture. I did not grow up gardening as a hobby. I never really thought it was that exciting until I went on this journey and opened my eyes and saw the benefits that I had firsthand. Just as experimentation, it was a joyful project, I would say. And I realized how much can be grown here because a vast amount of vegetables, fruits, and herbs I was relying on in the supermarket can be grown here, and the soil can support this kind of life more than I ever thought. So I'll show you what I did with the space that was available. Here's the garden, Chicago Backyard Edible Garden, I would call it, that I was lucky enough to partner up with my boyfriend to use some of his backyard to grow some really good edible food. And I'll share some of what is able to grow here. The vast array of greens, even one small space can produce harvests for weeks and weeks at a time. Protective netting is very important because I use the method of low intervention. And that means I did not spray the plants with any toxic chemicals. I used my hands to weed out when weeds were present. And that low intervention surprised me at how easy it is to really grow, and that you don't need to rely on all these external sprays and external things that we have been taught that we need. Before and after expansion, this is a process of expansion. You don't need to start off with transforming an entire backyard or front yard. It's about renting out a plot at a community garden. It's about planting in a container on a windowsill or on your balcony or patio. It's about partnering up with a loved one that does maybe have a huge backyard in the suburbs, or somebody that does have some balcony sunny spot in the city. This is what it is about. So what can be grown here? Tons of different leafy vegetables. They're extremely hardy. Kale, spinach, lettuce, cabbage. Root vegetables, also very hardy. Carrots, fennel, beets, garlic. This is all grown in the ground with the proper compost and nutrients. They grow very well. Flower bud vegetables, broccoli. This was an aha moment for me, because I grew up with the idea of a defined picture of what broccoli was going to the supermarket. And this is how broccoli looks. In real life, it's about 3 feet tall, and it buds from the center. So the reason I'm showing these pictures is for us to get a picture of what real food is. Because as I started walking around stores and supermarkets and cornerstones and looked at what things that were labeled as food, I had to redefine, when I started growing my own food, what real food was. Real food doesn't come in plastic packaging. Real food is not in a colorful cardboard box. Real food does not have a list of 12 toxic ingredients. Real food is a much more simplified version. But we have been separated from the food process. We are now the end result and the end consumer. We no longer know who grows our food, what's sprayed on it, who takes care of it, where it's shipped from, how many thousands of miles it traveled. And what I also had to redefine was what a farm can be. Because I grew up with the idea that a farm is thousands and thousands of acres of a single crop, of thousands of acres or corn and soybeans, never seeing the farm worker, only seeing planes over them spraying with these pesticides and herbicides. So you can redefine and think, you don't have to think, oh, how do we have a farm in a city? How is that even liable and possible? Well, it's very possible when small farms are redeveloped in balconies, patios, backyards, and you look at an aerial view of a city or the suburb, anywhere in the world, it becomes one large farm system. It becomes something that we have food security and food freedom. More fruits and fruit vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, pod vegetables, green beans, snap peas. Really easier than I ever thought. Seed vegetables, even quinoa, something that is expensive at the store that we go to, can be grown right here very well. And the idea of lettuce and grapes coexisting, the idea of this coexistence is what nature is all about and is what we're all about. Because as I look out in the audience, I realize how much vast diversity there is. And in natural spaces, that's how they thrive. Soil thrives with diversity. Soil does not thrive with a single monoculture system. And we have the self-agency to start up something somewhere. More sweet harvests, fruits are raspberries continue to grow over every year. Herbs, peppermint, spearmint, oregano, cilantro, evening primrose, sage, also things I've saved a lot of money on because I could pick easily in the backyard. The growth process. Now the growth process, even having a tomato plant in a container or in the soil, planting a seed, starting very small wherever you have the space, it's a very beautiful and captivating thing because it reminded me of how we grow, how communities grow and individuals grow, and the simplicities we need to thrive. Harvesting in the morning. Harvesting is another process that is really, really good physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that's where the transformation, and that's why we should be growing food. Because if we are feeling stuck and if we are feeling like our relationship with the environment is failing and we're not giving back, this is what we could do. So useful tools. Of course, you need water. Compost is another. That's an example of a compost bin. And composting basically is degraded, decomposed plant matter or waste matter that can be used to provide nutrients for your plants. Because just like when we eat a carrot, we automatically get those nutrients. Plants need nutrients too, and that's the reason why we should be composting if we can. Smaller garden option. There's so much potential here. It doesn't have to be one large backyard. It can be as small as you want it. Balcony patio food growing, another process. I decided to try it out and see how easy it is to grow in a container. Wheatgrass grows very well in a small little container. Cabbage and different peppers and herbs also grow very well. So harvesting for now and later. Why now and later? Because through the growth process, through May up until October, even November, we can harvest our fruits and herbs and vegetables and preserve them. The enjoyment of cooking with harvest. These are vegetables I normally, years ago, wouldn't have enjoyed cooking with. It wasn't something that was fun. Beets, broccoli, whatever, kale can seem boring. But if you grow your own food and you nurture something and you harvest it, there's something special there, and it tastes much fresher and much more enjoyable than when I bought it from the supermarket. Watermelon to cool off can be grown. Juicing or blending fruits and vegetables, another option. You can ask, what should I do with this? Even if I have one tomato plant, what do I do with it? So year-round uses of the harvest. And more options of what to do to preserve, because the idea of growing is not just for now, but for later. It's the idea of preservation. And self-subsistence and food freedom is another reason what motivated me to grow my own food. It's the idea that yes, we are capable people, we should have self-agency, and we should redefine what a farm is and what a farm worker is. And a farmer can be a woman or a man or any other identity. That is what is empowering. Seed saving for food security. Why food security? Is because as food prices continually are on the rise, I can sleep well knowing that if I save my seeds from the green beans, I can have a good harvest for the next season. And that is what we need in our communities, in those food deserts. Why should we be growing? Because that shouldn't be okay, that with all the space, and we can have proper seed saving and food security with just an individual or a community taking part in it. So how do you begin? I want everyone right now in this room to think of one space they have available, a sunny spot. Any spot. It could be a small on a balcony or a windowsill or a backyard or a family's part of their backyard. Anywhere that you think is viable to grow. Have that image in your mind. Okay, that is the first process you've just completed to grow your own food. That's where it begins. It begins with a space. And the other things you need is water, soil, seeds, compost, and sunlight. If you have a sunny spot and you have access to water, you can buy seeds, soil, and compost in many stores, in many hardware stores, and health food stores, and online. There's so much access right now, and the investment, in the beginning there's an investment, and as you grow food and harvest it, you save a lot of money. So my preference on seeds and compost and soil has been to go organic and non-GMO, because I want to decrease my reliance on toxic chemicals that are concerned to me, and my preference is to take part in less of those processes that are detrimental to our health and the environment. So how do you begin growing your own food? Well, let's say you're growing in a container on a balcony. Let's say that's all you have, or a little on a windowsill. You have to have soil and compost, and you can mix those in equal parts. Make sure the soil's fluffy enough, and start planting the seeds. The top should be flat, and make sure to poke some holes at the very top, a few inches apart, and make sure that the seeds don't go in further than 1/2 inch, because seeds grow best when at the top of the soil. You cover that with soil, you water those seeds and that soil every day. And it's an intuitive process. When the soil's dry, you water it again. When it's not dry, you don't need to water it. It's intuitive. How to harvest. You harvest when the tomato is ripe and red, you pluck it off. When the kale or lettuce is ready to harvest, you snap it off. When the green bean is green, you pluck it off. That's how intuitive and enjoying this should be. So if you cannot grow anywhere, there's a community garden search in Chicago, in the Chicago Park District website, that lists all the community gardens available every season. And what you do is pretty simple. You rent out a plot for that season, you go whenever you can and take care of it. Chicago Farmers Market, another option, because it's so important to support local in these times of the environmental issues we are facing and our own issues. Because what I noticed from this process is we struggle when our surroundings and environment is unhealthy. And when we are unhealthy and we exude that same back, the environment struggles. So that is our codependent relationship that we cannot separate ourselves from, ever. So I truly believe through the process of growing your own food, as small as you want to start it, it's really whatever, it's up to you, and it's a project. It's okay to fail. It's okay if something doesn't grow, you try again. Because I truly believe we can regain a sense of ethics towards the land, we can regain a sense of self in time of need, and we can regain healing for the communities that need it so much. Because ultimately, we don't need to share the same culture or identity or personality to care about Earth. We are citizens of the planet. We must act, and we must do something, even if it is just to grow one tomato plant. That is a start, and we can all take part in it. Thank you very much.